taken an economics course, you know that when you make a transaction, you know, buy a car or something, the participants in a transaction, according to economic theory, look out for their own interests. And then they're kind of like side effects, what happens to other people. That's a footnote. That's called an externality. Well, you know, the externalities can be pretty large, like, say, the current financial crisis is an externality. There are other externalities which are even worse. For example, if you take a look at today's polls, you know, last couple of days, there are new polls on attitudes of Americans towards global warming, and it keeps going down. And by now, about a third of the population think that, believe in anthropogenic global warming. Humans have something to do with global warming. It's being relentlessly driven down by a massive propaganda barrage telling people it's all a liberal hoax, so forget about it. Now, you know, the guys who are running these campaigns know perfectly well that the liberal hoax is very real, and it could destroy the lives of their grandchildren. In fact, it could destroy everything they own. And in their personal lives, you know, decent human beings, they understand that. But in their institutional lives, as, say, executives of a corporation, they have to play an institutional role. The institutional role is maximize profit and market share. In fact, that's a legal requirement, and ignore the externalities. Well, in this case, the externality happens to be the survival of the species. But the logic is the same as systemic risk, the same as Adam Smith's grievous effects on the population of England. These are inherent properties of market systems. Suppose a bank lends money. It cares about one thing, its own profits. Now, there's a property called systemic risk, the risk that if the market, say, crashes somewhere, it's going to be contagious. Okay, and there is that phenomenon. It's monstrous, in fact. But the investor doesn't think about that. Can't. You know, you think about your own risk. You cannot think about the cost to others of the fact that contagion may destroy a system. That's not part of your calculations. That's another externality. So the system is sort of built to magnify extremely dangerous properties. And this happens all over the place. I mean, what are called the externalities that just, you know, dominate life. Well, if you take a look at markets, they are a recipe for suicide, period. In market systems, you do not don't take account of what economists call externalities. So say you sell me a car. In a market system, we're supposed to look after our own interests. So I make the best deal I can for me, you make the best deal you can for you. We do not take into account the effect on him. That's not part of a market transaction. Well, there is an effect on him. There's another car on the road, there's greater possibility of accident, there's more pollution, there's more traffic jams. For him, individually, it might be a slight increase, but this is extended over the whole population. Now, when you get to other kinds of transactions, the externalities get much bigger. So take, say, the financial crisis. One of the reasons for it is that, there are several, but one is that in market transactions, say if Goldman Sachs makes a risky transaction, they, if they're paying attention, cover their own potential losses. They do not take into account what's called systemic risk. That is the possibility that the whole system will crash if one of their risky transactions goes bad. That just about happened with AIG, the huge insurance company. They were involved in risky transactions which they couldn't cover. The whole system was really going to collapse. But of course, state power intervened to rescue them. The task of the state is to rescue the rich and the powerful and to protect them. And if that violates market principles, okay, we don't care about the market principles. The market principles are essentially for the poor. But systemic risk is an externality that's not considered, which would bring down the financial system repeatedly if you didn't have state power intervening. Well, there's another one that's even bigger. That's destruction of the environment. Destruction of the environment is an externality. In market interactions, you don't pay attention to it. If you're, say, take tar sands, if you're a major energy corporation and you can make profit out of exploiting tar sands, you simply do not take into account the fact that your grandchildren may not have a possibility of survival. That's an externality. And in the moral calculus of capitalism, greater profits in the next quarter outweigh the fate of your grandchildren. And of course, it's not just your grandchildren.